Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Crafty Crew podcast. My name is Kinger. I'm joined by Mark.
Hello.
Nally.
Well.
And Walshy.
Good evening.
This week on the Crafty Crew podcast, it's red ales. Lads, Smythics, have we all indulged?
I actually have not.
Surprise, surprise. Another Irish traditional drink Walshy hasn't had ever. So here we go.
I've had my first red ale in like the last 2 or 3 weeks.
So new to the style, new to giving it a go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is a great way to start off. Two new ones for you, so hopefully.
Historically, Smythics for me is like, because I love a Guinness. So like, if I'm just too impatient to wait for the Guinness, I'll go Smythics, just as a quicker alternative.
It's a deep sign into your alcoholism there, Kinger. When you're too impatient to wait an extra 90 seconds for your drink, I'll buy another drink.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is if you're out and you're having a Smythics is handy. If you're having some food or something, you're not bloated after 2 or 3 pints of Guinness trying to eat a heap of food. You might be able to get through it if you have 2 or 3 Guinness or Smythics.
That is true.
So Nally, take us through, what's the difference between like a red ale and like a normal ale?
Yeah, so red ales and normal ales, they're, all the ingredients are the same they're all the same for all beers essentially. But so with red ales, they tend to be slightly lower in alcohol percentage, anywhere from kind of 3.8 up to 4.5 roughly. They get their colour because they use roasted barley or roasted malt in it. Now, stouts tend to use roasted barley and roasted malt as well, but it's nowhere near the same level. Clearly enough, they're red, not pitch black. But yeah, so what you get with a red ale is they tend to be more malt forward. They're not very highly hopped. They tend to be more restrained on the hop, and they kind of give this like a caramel toffee kind of flavour from the malt. The other thing with them is because of the roasted grain in there, they tend to be a bit more dry on a finish. So a lot of times they were compared to maybe English bitters that came across to Ireland and just got modified slightly using the roasted malts instead of the more caramel malts and things like that. Another thing, just a quick one, is red ales. We tend to think of red ales as being the Irish red ale, like Smythics, for example. But there are other red ales. There's a Flemish red ale, which is more like a sour. So it's just a different type of red ale that's out there.
Yeah, so to talk kind of a bit more about our, as you say, Smythics is the number one Irish red ale. It's kind of what people would associate if you were thinking about red ales. So a little bit of history on Smythics Brewery, because it's quite interesting. It's owned by Guinness now, of course, and the Smythics we know about, the one we associate with our pub, that's only been around since 1966. But the Smythics Brewery in Kilkenny, which unfortunately is closed now, but it was originally founded in 1710 by John Smythic. So it's actually an older brewery than Guinness, which was founded in 1790. So it's, an even more Irish beer than Guinness, even though they're both now owned by a massive multinational corporation called Diageo.
And as you're talking about Smythics, another one similar to that would be Kilkenny, except for Kilkenny has a less hop finish and is nitro-generated cream head similar to Guinness. I probably also messed up that word.
That's really interesting, Walshy. What's nitro-generation?
A big word, Mark. That's what that is. That's a big word.
Walshy's only job is to read it. He doesn't have to know what he's saying. Just like me.
I work in retail.
I'll give him a quick one there. I think it's basically they use the same kind of gas combination that they use for Guinness. So I don't know if people remember when we were talking about the stouts episode that we were saying that the reason Guinness tends to travel not as well is they mightn't have the line set up to run nitro. And I'm assuming that that's probably what they're on about in this case. They're running nitro through the lines to help give that creamy head on the pint.
Only for Nally interrupted, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Took the words right out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Word for word.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, as a bigger fella, I'm always thinking about food. So red ales are quite good for particular foods. So like there was a list of foods that I found that they're quite nice to pair with, and I was kind of surprised. I wanted to see what your reaction would be. Goat's cheese salad. And a pint of Smythics.
Doesn't
Not a
sound
fan
nice.
of goat's cheese.
Shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, could see that.
Bangers and mash.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, I don't see how it would hurt. Like,
Caramel cheesecake.
Can I just stop you there, Kinger? You're just
an odd
listing
one.
delicious foods and also alcohol, and you're expecting us to say no.
No.
Steak,
Okay, you wouldn't
curry.
you wouldn't have a pint of Guinness and like fish, would you? Do you know what I mean? So that like
I wouldn't have a pint of Smythics and caramel cheesecake, though.
that's why I'm saying it. Like, would you or wouldn't you? That's the.
I would. I think that'd be nice. I think that'd be
It
nice.
does.
What about-
I think it sounds nice.
How about with a full Irish breakfast? That's the only one I'm kind of like, nah.
I think this goes
Nally's
back
done
to
it.
this goes back to my point on. Remember, we asked the question about how if you only had one type of drink to drink your entire life, and I said IPAs. I think this would work well for Smythics because Smythics is a low ABV. So I mean, if you're starting the day off with anything, you get a low ABV with that full Irish, and it might work.
Throw in IPAs there, Nally. Something I've seen recently on shelves is red IPAs. And so when we were doing some research for this podcast, I had to look into it because it's like red IPA, it's India Pale Ale, so is it just a red ale? You know? But actually it's not. They're slightly different. So a red IPA is more towards an American amber ale, but it's lower hop profile and it's more malty. And also the alcohol range is typical to an IPA, so 5% and above. So it's got that crisp drinkability, but with that really ale-y, malty, strong taste. So just for anyone else listening out there, if you see a red IPA, it's not a red ale. They're different.
Thanks for clearing that up, Mark.
Answering questions no one's asked since 1992.
It fell to me, I think, wasn't it, to pick the red ales?
right.
I went with Dublin CIty Brewing Company's Renegade Red Ale.
Renegade.
Galway-
Renegade from
and
the city. Renegade.
and Galway Bay Brewery's Bay Ale Red Ale, just representing the home county there. So
Now, Kinger, you put on your
I
big
think-
thick Galway accent and call it Bay Ale there. Do you know, just like Mark was representing Dublin, you can do it for Galway. Go for it.
I think it's very hard to do a Galway accent and say Bay Ale. There has to be some kind of a just, like a sht in there somewhere.
That's a coward's way out, that is.
Let's ease Mark into it, and we'll start with the Dublin CIty Brewing Company's Renegade Red Ale. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it, son.
My initial thoughts on the smell are not good.
It's grand. It's not too bad at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's anything defining. It's just like a typical red ale kind of smell.
Yeah.
But certainly not anything to get excited about. In terms of colour then, I guess it's just your standard kind of goldeny, reddy colour, you know? It's just grand. It seems to be holding the head.
It looks more like a Coke to me than it does a red ale. I don't know why.
It's kind of like a copper kind of color. Do you know what I mean? It's not just red. It's kind of in between red and amber. Like it's kind of in between. Well, to me, it is anyway.
Yeah, I get that.
So I know you were saying, Nally, that like they're lower ABV. So this is only 4.2%.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is probably the normal kind of ABV for red ales.
Yeah. So ABV for red ales, it's I think it's somewhere between about 3.8 to maybe 4.8 or 5%. You don't tend to get red ales that are higher than that. But they're in that kind of general range. So 4.2, 4.4 would kind of be the average sale of red ales. I think Smythics is actually lower than that. I think Smythics is about 4% ABV, so it is. Which...
Okay. I know my dad is a massive Smythics drinker, so he was always happy when I'd get one as well, because he'd feel like he was kind of passing the torch, you know.
Does your dad listen to this podcast, Kinger, does he?
I think when my mum makes them,
Oh,
yeah.
very good. Shout out. It's a big shout out to Kinger's dad today from all the Crafty Crew podcasts. Great to know you're listening. I said, this is for you, baby.
We've taken your...
Enjoy that.
We've seen your Smythics and raised you a couple of crafties for the goal.
Yeah, so just bounce onto mouthfeel there, guys. This isn't very crisp at all. It's quite You know, it's a little watery and it's quite flat, I feel.
The word dank comes to mind for me.
No.
It's dank. Like it's... No, I don't mean bad. Like, dank, when I say... I don't mean rank. I mean, like, it's a heavy taste.
Kinger, depending on how much time you spend on the internet, dank can have a completely different meaning than the meaning you're going
really?
for, yeah.
I'm not even 100% sure what the meaning for that is. I thought it was a very bad thing you were saying.
I thought dank was like it's something heavy, like if it's, you know...
I'd agree with you on the mouthfeel. It's kind of like you were saying, Mark. It's a bit more lighter. It's more kind of watery than some of the other ones we've had. There's not as much carbonation there. It's kind of... I won't say it's flat, because there is a little bit there, but it's nowhere near as fizzy as some of the other ones we've tried.
It's interesting as well, like, we've talked before about how craft beers have all these, like, colourful and exciting can designs, and the Galway Bay Ale one we'll try later. It's very like that. It's got these weird, you know, mollusks and shellfish on it. Psychedelic colours. This is, like, quite minimalistic. It's a black can with a red label, you know, so that's kind of a bit of a unusual thing just to note.
I'd say it's
out though. It's cool.
one of them ones that just, you know, keep it simple. There's no point of really kind of overdoing it, maybe.
Yeah, I certainly noticed it when I bought it because it's standing out by being simple. So I wonder if craft beers will now swing back to just plain cans before they swing
Considering
back
you
again.
didn't pick it, Mark.
I had to buy it, Walshy. Kinger doesn't deliver these to our door. I had to go and buy the can. Is Kinger delivering your beers?
Kinger barely got his beers, so...
Don't mention the war. Don't mention the war. Jeez. I'm just reading the little blurb on the side of the can here. It says, taking inspiration from Countess Markievicz, an Irish politician, revolutionary, nationalist, suffragist and philanthropist, the Red Revolution is here. I would, like... It wouldn't inspire me to stay on red ales.
They're strong words for what is quite a weak beer, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
There's also a lot of big words that I did not understand.
So getting on to flavour there, lads. So what do you make of it? It's kind of I think you get with the red ales, they tend to be a bit more malt flavoured, so kind of like biscuity, caramelly type of flavours. So they're not like
I get
they're
the
not
caramel.
they're not hitting you in the face with any hops or anything like that. That kind of, you know, overt bitterness that you get from some IPAs and things like that. It's more subdued than on the lower bitter side.
Yeah, I'm getting that definitely. I think to go back to Kinger's word about dank, like it isn't great. Like it seems to be kind of sitting in the back of my throat. There's not like much distinct flavour there. It's a bit watery. I'm not really a big fan of this beer at all.
I agree now that it is quite watery, all right. I don't mind it though. I mean, you get the initial taste, but it doesn't seem to, for me, stick around too long.
Do you know when you go into a community hall like that hasn't been opened for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and there's that dusty, not damp, like that dusty smell?
Not really, Kinger, because I don't think I go around as many abandoned community halls as you do.
Oh, what? We live in Ireland and no one else went into old community halls when they were kids, no?
I don't remember me being a kid.
You haven't been drinking enough if you can remember your childhood, Kinger.
Barely remember what I had for breakfast.
The joys of doing a podcast with a bunch of townies. Like, Christ almighty.
Bunch of...
Okay, so when you go into any kind of an old building that hasn't been opened in a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever, that dusty kind of... That's what I imagine it tastes like. Is this the same smell? Maybe it's the malt coming through. So
you're talking about the old community centres. That, I assume, will be probably like a lot of the pubs when we eventually get back into them. Probably feel the same.
Yeah.
That's fucking very fair, yeah.
So all pubs just smelling like Smythics, and people wondering, I wonder if they sell a lot in here. But yeah, I definitely got kind of a biscuity kind of aftertaste on it. Like, you know, there's something not quite bready. It's a bit more sweet than bready after you've had a mouthful of it. Just at the end of it, it's you know, it's kind of dry biscuity type of thing.
Yeah, but it's not like the nice biscuits. It's not like a bourbon. It's the last biscuits left in the tin of USA. Those feckin' little shortbread things. That's what it's like.
Yeah. Or the ones that they've arrogantly called nice biscuits.
Yeah.
Are they pronounced nice biscuits?
It's the ones that you take out at the end, and you know, someone's coming over for a cup of tea. You know them, but you don't know them that well. You're like, James, we'll give them we'll give them these biscuits. They're grand.
You know them, but you don't want them coming back.
Yeah, you'd nearly be disappointed to open the tin and not find a sewing kit if you found these in there.
So overall, the taste we're saying is a bit underwhelming and not as nice as we were expecting.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't mind it, to be honest.
Go ahead, Walshy.
For what it is, I think it's okay. I don't think it's as bad as you were making out with your biscuit analogy. But it's not. I suppose it's not something I'd go all my way to get. But it's okay. I mean, I don't think it's horrible, but I don't think it's fantastic either.
Okay, well, this might be a nice segue then into our uber scientific rating system on the Crafty Crew podcast. We have a rating system of 1 to 5 that goes unbearable, booze, beer, brutiful, and unbeerleavable, Jeff. So, Mark, you kicked off the ratings last week with your beer, so I'm going to kick it off with my rating this week, I think, just to spice it up. And I'm going to vote for my first ever booze, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Wow.
Oh.
Could be a bit harsh, but
I'm jumping on the 9:30 Kinger train to Boozeville because this beer is going down.
just
Someone show
because
him the door.
we've put some beers like at a beer rating that are definitely better than this. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, but I don't know. I don't mind it. I don't know if I'd go booze.
Would you go out and buy this again, like just to have it?
No, but there's a lot of the drinks we've got I probably wouldn't, and I've given higher ratings.
Just on that, Kinger, going out to buy it again, I think that's, to me, it's not booze. It's just beer. I know I have a good few that are just beer, but it's because going out to buy it again isn't necessarily something that's just beer for me. Like we said last week with the Elvis juice, or like we said before with maybe the Rock Hellas that we had in episode 1 for the White Hag, where I was saying, it's just beer. I'm happy to have that. Someone hands me a can of that, I'm not going to, scoff at it. Like, it's grand. I drink it. I'm not going to go out of my way to go searching for it again, but I definitely give it a go. Like, it's grand. You know what I mean? It's not. Okay. I think the going from so we were saying Smythics is the go-to red ale. I mean, compared to Smythics, it's not muck. Like, it's grand compared to Smythics. And if Smythics is what we're using as our kind of measuring stick for red ales, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's down to booze.
I think it's a world apart.
We're not using Smythics. We're using the scientifically accepted Crafty Queer rating system, Nally. Okay. Do I need to remind you how difficult it was to finalise that rating system? Do we need to go back to the drawing board?
Months and months.
No, you're right. And I berated Kinger for such an act recently, so I'll bow my head in shame on that one and apologise. But I will give it a rating of just beer. I won't diminish it to the class of booze. I will say it's just beer for me.
One thing that I've been doing recently when I'm buying beer, especially online, so to force me to try stuff that I mightn't want to, I'm getting these kind of random boxes, mystery boxes from websites, and they send me out whatever and they force me. If that was in one of them boxes, I'm not going to be like, oh no, not this again. I'll be like, yeah, grand, I'll drink that. So, like Nally, I go with just beer as well.
That's a very roundabout way of just kind of saying what Nally said, that if somebody gave you this at a house, you wouldn't.
I'm pretty sure we say this every week as well, though.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's true.
If if I took the Kinger train straight to Boozeville, while she took 8 buses, 2 trains and a tram to get to Nallyville there.
I mean, I don't talk enough in this, so I want to say something.
Listen, I love the analogy. It was brilliant. I just wanted to point it out that it was very similar. That's all. But it was a great way of giving just a different opinion. Loved it.
That's what it's all about.
Different opinion that was the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It works for me.
So I think to sum up, guys, myself and Kinger are landing on this with a booze. Nally and Walshy are landing on it with a just beer. So as much as I hate when things go against me, that kind of comes right down between the two of them, which we always go up. So it'll be a just beer rating for Renegade Red Ale. So well done, Dublin CIty Brewing. Go.
Oh, it gets a slight booze in the background from Kinger. All right, we'll give it that. We'll allow that, Kinger. Get your dig in.
It's time for a Kinger question. It's time for a Kinger question. It's time for a Kinger question. Everybody, it's time for a Kinger question. No? We're not going to sing him in every podcast anymore?
On your own.
Okay.
So I mentioned food earlier on, pairing red ales with food. So I was thinking, if you had to give up your all-time favorite food, like your all-time favorite food in the world, or never drink craft beer ever again, which would you choose?
Yeah, food. That's not a hard question.
Nah, I'm done with food. That's good luck. Out the door. Goodbye. God bless. See you later.
There's enough other foods that I can eat.
Think about it now. Come on, think about it.
Has anyone here ever watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine? There is a scene in it where Captain Holt says if he could, he'd just eat like a bland nutrient paste every day to keep him alive. If it was choice between bland nutrient paste and beer, or no beer and all the food in the world, I would pick the paste and the beer.
Yeah, I mean, just flavour the paste with beer. Done.
Dip it in it.
Okay, can we
Use it as a straw.
Can we do a quick round the group? What's your favorite food ever?
Chicken.
Can we
Okay.
get a bit of information, like a roast chicken, KFC?
Just chicken. Any chicken. Chicken curry. Probably a chicken curry. Probably. Fajita
Okay.
as well. Like,
That's better. Like,
okay,
that's better.
Something
me,
is better than nothing.
Well, I mean, chicken's my favourite, so.
I assume we're not getting into the one specific meal. So for me, it's like burgers and chips. They're my favourite food, you know?
Jesus, you're a cultured lot. Nally?
For me, it would probably be favorite food would probably be some kind of mad yolk just to satisfy your urge for culture there, Kinger. But no, actually, I love stew. Stew's class, man.
So you're telling me you'd never ever have stew ever again? You'd never have burger and chips ever again, and you'd never have a chicken curry ever again?
I can get steak.
There's lots of different kind of curries, okay? I miss burgers and chips, but I could have like steak and chips, and you can just have warm Guinness instead of stew.
Yeah, or, I just find a new favourite meal then instead of stew. Kinger, I feel like this question you thought would be much more difficult for people to answer than it was.
Lads, just aside, right? I just need you to get on board with the questions. Just feel them. Like, just, think about them. Imagine that I'm asking you life and death questions, and we'll go back to the podcast now in a second.
I choose life with craft beer.
I also choose life with craft beer.
I'll give it a go for you, Kinger, but I'm pretty sure life with craft beer is going to win out in this one.
Fair, that's fine. Look, as I said before, I'm a big dude. I don't know that I could give up my favourite food over beer. Like, honestly.
What is your favourite food, Kinger? Because you judged all of us, so...
Shepherd's pie. My mum's shepherd's pie. It's unbelievable. It's simple as. That's,
Why the judgy comments about us being uncultured then? If you're just going to eat shepherd's pie, it's your favourite food. We didn't... we wouldn't have judged it, but you judged us. So now we are going to judge it.
How the turns have tabled.
Shepherd's pie is cultured.
How? It's a dish named after shepherds that has like 4 ingredients, all of which are like, peasant ingredients from the Middle Ages.
But it's super tasty.
Yeah, but all of our foods are super tasty. We didn't throw hate at each other. You just started throwing hate on me for liking burgers and chips, man. Who in the world doesn't like burgers and chips? Everyone in the world, you should be offended by Niall King right now.
throwing hate, actually, we've established in this podcast, is actually Mark's job. So that's probably why he's getting more offended than most.
Very true.
It's also the first time that my name has actually been used in the podcast, which felt weird.
Also, I mean, like, you know, at least you didn't rag on a stew, because a stew is basically just a deconstructed shepherd's pie. So if anything, by it being deconstructed, it's slightly more cultured, maybe. You know, that's what the fancy restaurants tend to do.
Okay, look, I'm going to up my questions game from now on, because clearly you guys had too many answers to that. And
It's almost, Kinger, as if our backs have been put up against a wall for a number of weeks, and now we're actually fighting back whenever we have the chance, isn't it?
Yeah, imagine that, Mark, when you're cornered every so often with just random questions and brought upon you all of a sudden, and you have to give these answers straight off the bat. Imagine when a question comes along that you can answer straight away. You want to get back at them then a little bit.
well, lads, you'll be happy to know that my next question for this podcast was actually sent in by a listener. So hopefully you'll enjoy that one a bit more than
We
this
have
one.
those.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Also, Mark, just if people do have questions for us, where can they find us?
Yeah, no, so in all seriousness, anyone who wants to ask a question to the podcast, please find us on Facebook at Crafty Crew Podcast. Feel free to post on our wall or send us a message or comment on any of our posts. And if you have any questions or queries, we'll bring them up in our podcasts and you'll get a shout out on the air. If it's really, really good, you might get a prize. And if it's really, really terrible, you might get some, podcast abuse. You can also...
Banter.
Banter. You can also find us on Untapped, which is like the Facebook of beer, at crafty_crew_podcast. And we're available every Friday on all good streaming platforms for podcasts. So Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Anchor, wherever you listen, we're there.
Moving swiftly on to the second red ale of the episode. I'm coming home. It's Galway Bay Brewery's Bay Ale Red Ale. I hope that was Galway enough for you, Nally, was it?
I will give you it's a pass-fail on this one, and you passed.
It seems to be a lot creamier, and it's holding a much thicker and smoother head than the last beer.
That's what I was going to say. The first thing I noticed is that there's much more of a head out of this one. Practically the same colour.
Yeah, near enough. I'd say it's probably just a little bit lighter than the other one. I think the other one was a little bit darker. Kind of more copper. This is a little bit lighter, so it is. It still looks red, but
Okay.
It's a little bit lighter to me.
Yeah.
The mouthfeel for this one is much more satisfying, I have to say. It's very even, doesn't have that watery tint to it. It's just a nice, smooth, even red ale taste to it.
Yeah, and it kind of carries a bit more of the carbonation through it as well. It's a little bit more there. It's not as I don't want to say flat because the last one wasn't flat, but it's definitely a bit more carbonated than the last one. So it is.
Would I be right in saying after you kind of get that initial, there's kind of like I don't know, like a sting or a little sharpness
I think
at
so.
the very end? I don't know if that's the right term.
What I think Nally kind of referred to it there, that's like after the taste has just started to fade, the carbonation is what's left, and you're getting that little bit of crispness right at the end of the mouthful.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think it might be a bit more hopped than the Renegade as well. It's. I think you might be getting at the bitterness. It's a little bit more bitter on the finish than the Renegade was as well. So there is that little bit more of something at the end of it,
Like I know it's a red ale, but there's I think there's more of a similarity to this to the beers we've tried already, like IPAs, etc. I think there is that. It's the hoppiness maybe.
Yeah, quite possibly, and it's cloudy enough, like when you're looking through it. So it has that in common with the kind of IPAs that we're kind of would mostly drink or have been trying lately. But for me, it's actually a really solid taste, and I'm not a massive fan of red ales. Like I like Smythics. I kind of like a lot of them. I don't love any of them, but this is definitely in my like section. I'm enjoying it very much.
It's a 4.4% as well, so it's marginally stronger than the Renegade, but I don't think that's super noticeable.
I think one point to make between the two of them, like the Renegade also came in a 440 can against Galway Bay coming in on a 330. Maybe in general, maybe the 331, you might find it easier to have maybe a small few of them rather than having a 440 can of Renegade and then maybe another 440. It's a lot in comparison.
Yeah, so I get that, Walshy. I agree with you there. Like in terms of like drinkability and repeat drinking, to totally agree. We spoke a few weeks ago about stouts and Siren's Broken Dream, and how alcohol content can have a big effect on, you know, how a beer tastes. And so our Renegade today was only 4.2%, which is quite low and on the low end of what we'd normally be drinking. And this one, it only moves up that 0.2% to 4.4. But I think that could be having an impact on the smoothness of this. I think it's just enough to get rid of the watery kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know, you're more in a kind of, say for anyone listening, like Heineken range now, your standard lagers. So I think they're quite smooth drinks, and I think this has kind of gotten into that smoothness by just going up a little bit.
Nally was doing some investigating there. What did you come back with?
They're both red cans, which is great marketing for red ales.
That's an astute observation.
Right. I seen what you did there, lads.
Yeah, I'd like to give Galway Bay Brewery some kudos on this can. Most of their cans are like, they're grand, quite colourful or whatever, interesting craft brewery cans. I really like this one. It's a load of like mollusks or, you know, what's the word? What's that kind of crab that changes its shell? Anyone know?
Hermit crab.
Yes. It's the hermit crab shells with like all these psychedelic colours over a big black hole. And you know, I used to live near Galway and I've been to Galway so many times. And you know, a big black hole surrounded by seashells really does remind me of Galway. So I think they did a great job here.
Kinger's face has just dropped.
I mean, zero need for that. Like,
just for any of our listeners, I don't actually mean that. I love Galway. It's just to see Kinger's heart die. It was worth saying that.
There's definitely more of a familiarity with this beer, I think, compared to Renegade Red Ale. I know we shouldn't be comparing the two beers together, but like in terms of what you're saying, like drinkability, etc. And maybe it is the carbonation that's kind of hanging around and kind of adding that like sharpness at the end of the taste. It makes the aftertaste a bit more enjoyable, I find.
Yeah, so I think because the carbonation's there, it's a bit more crisp, it's a bit more refreshing at the end of it. And just when you're on about comparing them, Kinger, I suppose, I mean, there's no harm. I mean, that's why we're doing the same style each time. You know, It kind of gives you a way to compare them, and you know, it's not the worst thing. If you know, like I know Mark generally agrees with, he has the one process that goes in and he tastes it and that's it.
The process.
But if we are, if we're doing the one style, it's not too bad to compare them, because Walshy said it before. He said, I think it was on the Sours episode, he was saying that Mark hadn't anything to compare it to at the start, and then kind of when we had the second sour, there was a bit of comparison there. So being able to compare them is not the worst thing in the world. I mean, rate them on their own merit, but at least you have somewhere to go from it as well.
Yeah,
I find with beers, and I don't know if any of you guys you find this as well, let me know when I'm finished, but when you start drinking a beer of any description, even if it's one you've had a million times before, the first one or two mouthfuls elicit the biggest response. Then it kind of settles down a little bit and you get what the kind of true taste of the beer is from then till the end. And with the Renegade, whatever, it's grand, but for me the kind of watery taste is coming through, that dank taste that you said, Kinger. With this I'm getting that smooth kind of full red ale taste the more I drink of it, and that's really making it very drinkable for me. I'm very much enjoying this beer.
I think 2 episodes in a row now I've said something along the lines of the more I drink it, the more I enjoy it, which, as I said, is a dangerous precedent for any beer. But like, I am finding that with this compared to the Renegade Red Ale, by the time I got to the end of the glass, I was like, oh, it's almost gone. Whereas with this, I'm like, I'm enjoying it,
I do think you have the Renegade that didn't leave that much of a taste. I don't think it's a taste like you're really going to remember, even like if you have the one in even an hour's time, you're like, oh yeah, that was nice. I don't really remember the profile or the taste of it. But whereas that does have that bit of an aftertaste, you'd be like, yeah, I could see it. And you'd remember it for a while,
Yeah, so just to swing us down to the scores then. Kinger, you went first last time. Let's leave you to go last this time. And I'm going to throw it out to Walshy.
Yeah.
Give us your opinion on this, Walshy. What do you think this is like, and where do you think it lands on the Crafty Crew rating scale?
See, my issue here is it's definitely nicer than Renegade, but I don't think I'd go unbeerleavable either, or even Brutiful. I'd be on that side of just beer, but I'd probably be closer to Just Beer than I would be Brutiful. So, I know it's really going to come down to where we all lie together.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here for what they're worth, which is not quite 2 cents. But I think this is going to land on a Brutiful for me. It's a bit of maybe a lower range of Brutiful, but this is really nice. It's got a really smooth, full body. It's very much a typical red ale. Really enjoyable, and I can see myself drinking this for a whole night, not complaining. I can see myself buying this, whenever I see it. So for me, it's going to be a Brutiful for Galway Bay's red ale.
Yeah, it's grand. It's a nice beer. I think it'd be on the same lines as you. He says as he finishes it off that it's more on the Brutiful side of Just Beer for me as well. Yeah, it's a really nice beer. I'd have no complaints sitting down drinking that all night. It's very, it's definitely sessionable. Like, you could sit down and have a good few of them. It's the lower ABV as well, so you're able to, you'd get through a full session of them. So for me, it's better than the Renegade in my opinion, and the Renegade was Just Beer to me. I'd go for a Brutiful for Galway Bay Ale.
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree with the two of you lads. I would put this in around the Brutiful. I think it's going to be very hard for the four of us to kind of ever settle on an unbeerleavable beer. That doesn't quite get there. But I would definitely put this above a beer as opposed to,
Sounds to me, Kinger, like you want to give this an unbeerleavable, but you know which way the wind's blowing, and you know that we're going to abuse your record of giving beers 5 out of 5 and Untapped if you do.
No. To be fair, I respect the system, and I think a beer has to be absolutely out of this world for us all to hit unbeerleavable. To be fair, so I'm saying Brutiful.
Hey, Nally and Walshy, want to hear a joke?
If it's from you, no.
Moving on.
Hey.
Moving on. Galway Bay Brewery's Bay Ale Red Ale gets a Brutiful rating from the Crafty Crew podcast. Okay, as I finish off Galway Bay's Red Ale there, question 2 for this week's episode comes from friend of the podcast, the Dooge. So, question for the podcast, lads. Imagine this scenario. So he's painting a picture, which I love, right?
Yeah, I know the dude. That lad can't paint. Stop it.
Pubs are back open. Place is buzzing. Live music is being played. Group of you and your friends at the table, and you're looking at the largest craft menu in the world. Now, in the world. So think outside the box here. What are you having?
Right, so let's just rule out a couple of things straight out the bat, just for the sake of it. Let's rule out, let's say it has to be a craft brewery. So I know I cannot wait to get in and get a big, dirty, creamy pint of Guinness. I can't wait for it. But let's just rule them out for now. Let's stick with the question. Let's stick with it's the largest craft selection. And let's say, just for a bit of variety, let's rule out anything near us. So for me, that's like dead center. I can't be going in waiting for my pint of Seeking Sunshine, for example. It's got to be something a bit more out there.
Okay.
For me, that's Hope Brewery, which is near enough where I live, and I'm a massive fan of.
Well, I know what I do. I like straight away for me, it's Metal Beer Solid.
So Kinger, I think it's a great choice. A lovely double IPA for anyone who hasn't had it. But it was a limited edition beer that doesn't exist anymore, and more than likely will never exist again. So I think you're doing a bit of a Walshy on this one and trying to get out of the rules of the contest. Should it not be a beer that legitimately will exist again?
That wasn't in the question.
Fair enough. Okay, I won't argue further with you. I'm just trying to make a point, but that's fine.
He didn't stipulate that it had to be they can be limited editions.
No, that's fine. No, that's grand actually. If we can go limited editions, that's good. Not that I'm going to, but
spoiler.
Can I give one type of beer, but from 2 different places?
Are you talking about a genre?
Yeah, the type of beer, but I'd be
if
kind
it's
of
you,
happy
then no.
to have one from either place.
No, we can.
Oh, okay, I was going to lean with between the 2. White Hag's salted caramel stout or Rascal's Candyman salted caramel stout.
Okay.
So now, if you had to narrow it down to one of those two,
Rascal.
which would you go with?
Rascals. I'd
There you go.
just
So
love,
Walshy's-
if it was on tap, I think I'd love to get an actual pint of it. See if there's much of a difference of it on draft than it would be over can.
Well, I mean, this question, I would have read it is, it's your dream craft menu. So if you want it on tap, it's on tap.
Okay. I would like the Candyman from Rascals on tap.
Good show, Walshy. It's a really nice beer. For me, I'm going to go with something that I drink probably once every 2 weeks just to remind me what happiness is. And that's the Seafarers Amber Ale by Badger Brewery. It's a lovely crisp amber ale, which are quite related to the red ales we've had tonight, actually. And, you know, I've had this for years and years. I absolutely love it. And if I had to pick one thing, I'm going to pick this because I know I'm going to enjoy it.
Is it called a Firsty Ferret?
Yeah.
Firsty Ferret. F-U-R-S-T-Y. And then ferret, the word ferret. I don't need to spell the word ferret. But
I've never heard of it.
yeah, it's by the Badger Brewing Company. They're over in England, and you know it's not I'm not going to say it's like the nicest beer in the world. It's not. It wouldn't even be a 5 for me. But it's just one of those that I have like really enjoyed so consistently for so long that you know it's always in my head to have one. So that's why I'd pick.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with Kilgar's Big Bunny. That's a stellar beer, so it is.
Ooh.
To me, that's a stellar beer.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. So, I mean, if I get into a pub and there's a nice cold pint of Big Bunny there, I am lapping it up, so I am. Happy days.
It's a good beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have no complaints about that from us, Nally. Great show.
Come on.
Kinger, what about you?
Metal Beer Solid.
Didn't I?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that section of the podcast.
I know what mine. You called them out on it and everything.
Don't put that in.
me.
Please don't put that in. Please don't put that in.
Oh, definitely. And the
Please
begging.
What's happened here? I've given my answer. Mark's gone, no, you can't do that. What I would have is this. Walshy gave his answer, Nally gave his answer, and Mark said, Kinger, what are you having?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I apologise. I'm retracting my apology because I said you can't have that.
But you
What
also.
do you have?
but
Oh no, wait. Oh, I also already retracted it. Didn't
Yeah,
I?
but you also
Oh,
you also stipulated that limited editions did actually count, and then nearly give a spoiler for yourself.
To any of our listeners, podcasts are hard, man. Don't do them, especially if it's a craft beer podcast. That's our idea. Don't steal it.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Crafty Crew podcast. I do hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. Big thanks to Galway Bay Brewery and Dublin CIty Brewing Company for their red ales this week. Mark, if people want to get in touch, give us one more shout.
Okay, yeah, so once more, find us on Facebook at Crafty Crew Podcast, on Untapped at Crafty Crew Podcast, also craftycrewpodcast at gmail.com if you want to email us a question. And then we're on all good streaming sites such as YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, wherever you are, we're there.
Deadly. And for next week's episode, we are doing the unthinkable and we're going non-alcoholic beers.
Oh my God.
Blasphemy.
Is that a thing?
So we have Dundalk Bay Brewing's non-alcoholic IPA and we have Lervig's No Worries Pineapple, non-alcoholic as well. So until then, it's a goodbye from Nally, Walshy and Mark, and from myself, Kinger. See you next week.